for me, African American History Month is very important because it's an opportunity for all of us to show our cultural identity, or however you want to frame that, and expose people that don't have the same relationships that we have, or come from the same background that we do, to understand that we're still, regardless of our differences, still working in the same direction. We just all get there sometimes a different way.
Hello, friends. I'm pleased to be here today with Coach Kris Price as we observe African American History Month. Coach Price has been with Leander ISD since 2019 and is both a distinguished educator and athletic coordinator / head coach at Leander High School. Coach Price, welcome to On the Street.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me here today. Very excited to join you, and look forward to this conversation.
Well, so do we. And we are honored to have you, and know that our audience is eager to hear from you about your journey here in Leander and anything else you'd like to share with us.
Sure.
So with that being the case, how do you feel about us just jumping in?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get going.
All right. So let's start with the question that I don't think I've asked too many people before, but I want to just roll it into our conversation. It might shed some light on who you are as a coach, as an educator, and also some of your interests outside of both.
Sure.
So what is your favorite movie?
Yeah, it's hard to nail down one movie in particular that I would say is my favorite. I enjoy multiple genres of movies, and so it kind of depends on what mood I'm in. I think, Friday Night Lights is a great movie to me.
Terrific film.
Yeah, being a football coach and kind of having a little bit of background in the West Texas area. Actually, so it's definitely on my list. As an educator, I taught social studies, and so there are some traditional films that I really enjoy. 1984, the movie based on the book by George Orwell, is probably one of my favorite movies. So it's hard to nail down just one movie in particular.
Well, I like the fact that you have an interest in different genres of film, because I think we share that in common, in addition to both teaching social studies. I love almost every genre of film. I love black and white movies. I love contemporary movies. And I've even gotten into silent movies.
Okay.
Directors like Oscar Micheaux.
Okay. All right. So you got me on that one.
I'm starting to branch out just a little bit.
Okay. All right.
The silent movies, it's totally different.
Yeah.
But the acting is exquisite.
Okay.
And I think that's what attracts me to it.
I'll have to give one of them a go.
All right. I have to recommend one. So can you tell us about your journey as a person and as an educator, and tell us about where you grew up?
Yeah. Originally, I'm from Starkville, Mississippi. I moved to Texas when I was younger, elementary, middle school age.
To Central Texas?
Actually to North Texas. Okay. I grew up in DFW Metroplex and went to school, graduated high school there. Originally going into college, I would say education wasn't necessarily my career pathway where I was headed.
What did you think you would study?
I was a computer science major
Yes.
for a little bit, and got into some of those classes and just realized it just wasn't probably the best fit for me, and I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I would. I coached and played coming up, and got back into coaching while I was in college, working with younger kids, and just felt like that was kind of more of my passion.
Right.
And switched gears and went into the kinesiology department, which is completely different than computer science, and went through the education program at the University of North Texas, received my bachelor's in kinesiology, and with a minor in history, became a certified teacher, and was actually in graduate school pursuing my graduate degree when I was offered an opportunity to coach in Keller ISD. And I took that opportunity because it was a good one for me. I thought it would be a good fit, and that's kind of what kicked off my career in education and coaching. And I have had some opportunities to do some pretty cool things through my career, been in a lot of different parts of Texas, been in
Right.
Central Texas once before, East Texas, South Texas. So I've gotten to travel a little bit and move a little bit and see a little bit more.
Broaden your skill
Yeah,
set.
absolutely.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of background about, my career and kind of what got me here.
And when you played, what position did you play?
I was a safety and punter.
Really?
Yes, I was. Yes.
The punter.
I was the punter.
I think you're the first one I've ever met.
Yeah. I was the safety and the punter. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, once play a little quarterback, but
Yeah.
not quite tall enough.
Yeah, it does kind of matter. You got to be able to look over the line.
It
right?
does matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've coached on the defensive side. That's been kind of my background, just because of my playing background. So.
And so why did you want to become, you talked a little bit about it, it was always a passion for you, but why did you want to become a coach at this level?
I think it's just, I feel like that's where I had the most positive impact. I started off
on young people.
Yeah, absolutely. I started off at the middle school level, which was great, but there was still, I didn't feel like I had the same positive impact on that age group that I do with high schoolers, because they're getting ready to transition into another phase of their life completely.
Things are more immediate for them.
Yes, and so I felt like that I could help more with that age group, and that's kind of been where I've liked, to be.
And so how many years did you work at the middle school?
Only 2. Yeah,
only 2.
Only 2 years. The education part. The education part obviously is very important, but the coaching part, has a big impact on what your movement is within education. So when you're, a teacher and a coach, all of a sudden opportunities may come up and you may move out of a situation that you actually enjoy for another opportunity. So, you throw coaching on it makes some decisions a little
leads
bit.
to a lot of moves sometimes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And going back to your point about being and studying computer science.
Yeah.
Knowing that about you, I could definitely see that. I can. The ability to look through whatever the problem is and get to the other side.
Sure.
You definitely have that quality.
Well, I appreciate that. We try.
And so when you were in school, you grew up in the Dallas Metroplex. Which high school did you attend?
Eastern Hills High School in Fort Worth. Yeah.
And when you think back on that period, did you have a favorite subject, a favorite teacher?
Yeah. I actually, taught social studies, but my favorite subject was actually English.
Really?
Yeah. Favorite teacher was Miss Jacqueline Crowder. She was my English 2, English 2 second semester, and then I had her for English 3 and English 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I had her almost my entire high school career. It just kind of worked out like that. And then, she was a big influence on me in terms of just my love of, English literature and I think at times I thought I was going to actually go back, and I actually, in the middle school, I taught English literature at the middle school level, but didn't continue the certification pathway. It's just not what I needed at the time. But I think at one point I thought I was going to go the English route more than anything else. And so she had a big influence on me. She was always very positive. She helped, me go through the process of high school, helped me get into college. She was a big
Sounds like a
reason.
mentor.
Yeah, she absolutely was. And she was always, great to me and, my classmates. So she was a very positive figure at our high school.
So English literature, I had a teacher named Mrs. Carol Orlandi.
Okay.
She taught British authors when I was a senior in high school. And she was the one who exposed me to Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. I don't remember much about it, but I remember her passion for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how she wanted us to invest ourselves in this book. And literature is something that over my career, I've really developed not only just an interest, but an appreciation for.
Sure.
Especially poetry.
Yeah.
I love poetry. One of my favorite pieces of poetry is Invictus.
Okay.
And then my second one is The Contract by William Ayotte. I love the way poetry can allow us to construct our own meaning. No matter what we're going through, we can always find value in something that's in that poem.
Well, and I like, when it comes to English and English teachers, and you're kind of doing it now, I think, you see all of them, the passion that they get when they start talking about, poems or stories that have an impact on them. And I think that's just a lot of English teachers just kind of have that trait that
Yes.
maybe you don't find it in some of the other subjects. And that's kind of what drew me into it, is just the fact that,
becomes
my
contagious.
teacher was very passionate about it, and it made me have a lot of respect for it and some passion for it.
Mrs. Orlandi, I remember her. She was a very professional, very put together English teacher. And we always saw her that way until one day after school, we were all standing out in front of the school, and we see this black Trans Am pull up, 79 Trans Am with the T-tops off.
Yeah.
It was Mrs. Orlandi. We lost it.
Yeah.
We did. Because it was such a dichotomy between the way she presented in class and seeing her in this car.
She's going to pill out of the parking lot.
She did.
Trans Am.
She did. Listen to her music. But it just helps you understand that everybody has a passion. Everyone is an individual.
Sure.
And that's a lot of what we talk about here in Leander. And that's why I wanted to interview you outside of being African American History Month. We want young people to pursue their passions.
Sure.
And sports is part of that.
Yeah.
And we want them to be seen as individuals. And that's part of our mission around cultural competency, making sure that every single child has a place here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think our coaches do a phenomenal job at that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So why did you choose to come to Leander ISD? And what keeps you here? Not that we're pushing you out.
Sure.
We don't want that. No. But I'm saying, I'm just curious, because you could have, with your pedigree and your skill set, you could have chosen to go anywhere. Why did you come to Leander ISD?
Well, talking about some of the moves that I made, career-wise, I think ultimately we're all looking for, in our profession, a place that feels like home. And, I think you pull my resume and look at some of the stops that I've made, you would see that Keller ISD was my longest stint anywhere. And then I did it twice. I was there when I was younger, and then I came back when I was a little bit older. And then when I looked at places that I wanted to end up, I wanted to end up in a place that reflected the same values. And that was the family, the community, opportunities for kids to get, a wide range of exposure to different education and different academic needs and needs being met and all of those things. And with the family, you want to make sure that, you put your family in the best position possible. And so
Absolutely.
This was more of a personal decision for me, because I think Leander ISD wasn't just about a coaching job or anything like that. It was about, making sure my family and people that I loved and care about were in a great place to grow up and grow old and all of those things. And Leander is just one of those places.
No, I would agree. I mean, I think it's a phenomenal district, and the sense of belonging is there. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to come here too.
Sure.
I mean, because when you look for a place that, especially when you have a certain number of years on you like we do,
Sure.
you look for a place where you can continue to grow, but also a place where, people accept what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not always the case.
Absolutely.
So when you think about African American History Month, what are some of your favorite memories? Is there anything that you'd like to share about your journey of discovery around that? Things that you've learned along the way that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I think that as it relates to things that I've kind of learned along the way, I think, we talked about the passion that English teachers have for their stories. I think growing up in the high school that I went to, I think you saw some passion surrounding opportunities, not just for African American History Month, but for Hispanic Heritage Month and Women's History Month, that we saw passion from our teachers and from our administration about showing those, giving everyone an opportunity to see those see
themselves reflected.
Yes, and that is kind of what I grew up with. So for me, African American History Month is very important, because it's an opportunity for all of us to show our cultural identity, or however you want to frame that, and expose people that don't have the same relationships that we have, or come from the same background that we do, to understand that we're still, regardless of our differences, still working in the same direction. We just all get there sometimes a different way. And so my job as a educator is to, take the background that I have and relate to everybody
Yes.
and make sure that
Yes.
everybody understands that it may not be the way that you've approached it your whole life, but we can all still be successful and all still come together even if we've got some different backgrounds. And that's kind of what I look for and what I hope to
Mm-hmm.
do as the head
Mm-hmm.
football coach, because I have a diverse team and I work
Oh,
in a
certainly.
diverse school.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be able to relate to everybody. And so when we look at African American History Month, it's, yes, absolutely, talking about the contributions of African Americans, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also talking about how we are contributing to everybody moving forward.
No, I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that I always tell people is that African American history is truly just U.S. history
Yeah.
from an African American perspective.
Yeah.
Same thing with women's history, Latino history, or Hispanic Heritage Month. It's the same thing. It's just from a different perspective, but it's still U.S. history. And I love something else that you highlighted. There's a certain diversity within the African American community
Yeah.
that sometimes I don't think we fully appreciate. Just because we may see things differently doesn't mean that we're not all striving in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's been lost.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm glad
Just
that
trying to. That's all we talk to all of our kids about, and in everything that we do on the athletic side, and I'm sure in the rest of the school is just, ultimately there's a goal for all of our kids, which is to graduate high school. And if that's the
Yes.
singular goal,
Yes.
then how many different ways can we approach these
Mhm.
kids to make sure that they meet that goal? And so, it's easy for someone to look and say, Coach Price is the head coach, but I have, 13 other guys on my staff that all
Right.
bring another
That's right.
perspective.
That's right.
And it's not necessarily just related to, race or ethnicity. It's
Mhm.
just what
Mhm.
you grew up with, what you were around, what you were exposed to. How can you help the kids understand a different way to approach things to get to the same goal?
No, I love that too, because each one of us has a contribution to make,
Yeah.
and we all have to respect that diversity of thought
Yeah.
that we bring to the equation. And that's another thing that we talk a lot about here on Leander is that part of seeing the individual is also seeing their individual journey and their individual worldview. And just because it may not coincide with yours doesn't make it wrong,
Sure.
doesn't make yours right. It just makes it different.
Yeah.
And I think being able to bring all kids along and being able to help them understand that no matter who you are, there's a place for you here and there's a contribution for you to make. And this is once again why I love sports. I played basketball and I ran track, and my coaches were absolutely phenomenal because they gave me a sense of belonging. They held me accountable without judgment, but they taught me that it was okay for me to be me.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the special things that coaches bring. And then coaches have a voice sometimes that we don't have. We're just regular educators. We don't have that. Coaches have that. And, I shared this story. The only reason that I took geometry is because my basketball coach, Dr. Moffitt, told me I needed to take it.
All right.
And that would open up the door for me to take other advanced math courses. But other people had told me I had to take it, but it was him. His voice was the one that I listened to.
Yeah.
So coaches have a unique way of sometimes communicating, and their voice, because, when I was a teacher, we used to talk about voice fatigue. Your students get tired of hearing your voice,
Sure.
but not your coach's voice.
Yeah. No, it's a real thing. And, we encourage all the coaches on the staff at Leander High School are encouraged to use that voice to help get those kids going
Yes.
in the right direction.
And that reminds me of what our chief communications officer, Christina Hardy, would always say. And in the end, we're one LISD.
Yeah.
That's her thing. And
Yeah.
I totally believe that. So to me, when I think about African American History Month, I think about all of the sacrifices and the contributions that were made so that you and I could have this conversation today.
Absolutely.
I think about, the Brown case. I think about the 64 Civil Rights Bill. Both of those led to you and I being in leadership positions in this district.
Sure.
And I don't ever take that for granted.
Absolutely.
Because to me, African American history is about honoring the past and making sure that we secure a future for those coming after us.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important for us to always honor that.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else, Coach Price, you'd like to share with us about your journey? I mean, your leadership skills are phenomenal. I've seen you in action. Your demeanor the more I learn about you being a computer scientist. That makes a lot of sense, sir. Yeah, because you are just, in aviation, we talk about just maintaining even strain.
Yeah.
You'd have been a great pilot, too. Yeah.
I got to wear his glasses.
So do I. But it has to stop me.
Yeah, okay. I think the biggest thing I would say, just, to that question, just anything else, is that I love the profession of education.
Yeah.
I love
it shows.
Yeah, I love the fact that we get to wake up every day and work with young men and young women, and help maybe move them to the next stage of their life,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's, college or into the workforce,
military,
any of those things. And we do that, wearing shorts to work half the time. That's pretty cool too. So, I love the process of education. I love the fact that we get those opportunities to work with kids. And I think sometimes, the perception of, teachers, coaches alike, everyone in education, is that we're just kind of here, kind of just doing this thing. No,
right.
I think that you will find that all educators are really passionate about what they do and
Yes.
what impact they hope to have on kids. And so I try to tell my kids a lot, and I would say it to this community, anyone that watches this, I appreciate all of the parents allowing us and giving us the opportunity
Definitely.
to work with their kids, and we appreciate the kids wanting to be here with us.
Yeah.
It gives, without those two groups, I'm not sitting here either. I'm doing something else, and so I'm very appreciative of the opportunities that I have to do this, and do it in Leander's makes it even better.
You highlight something that I think we always have to be reminded of, that the parents are so important to this equation, right? Yeah. And, when I found out you were a football coach, I've always wanted to ask, so what's it like having practice in August in Texas?
Probably like having practice in winter in Wisconsin. Not a whole lot of fun.
That is true.
It's changed so much. We do a lot of things now
to try to reduce the exposure.
To try to reduce the exposure. And obviously you see how people are building facilities now in school districts to try to give people more indoor spaces to kind of get them out of heat. It's something, unfortunately, we contend with, and
So do you have a straw hat?
I have all kinds of hats. I'll wear whatever you give me to keep me from dying out there in the heat.
Oh man,
it's rough days sometimes.
I have no doubt.
Okay.
I have no doubt. I mean, when I used to train, when I was in high school, I ran the 2 mile.
Okay.
And we used to run along Lake Michigan in the winter.
Oh,
brutal.
Yeah.
Just right before indoor season would start, we'd be taking these long runs in January along Lake Michigan. Wind chill is maybe 8 above, and the wind. Oh, yeah. And the wind is in your face, and your coach is like, the wind is our friend. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is not our friend.
Nothing friendly about that.
And now, if the wind is more than 10 miles an hour, I don't run.
Yeah.
I just say, you know what, I'm going to jump rope and box today. I'm not going out there.
It's amazing, as you get older, there's a lot of things you choose not to do anymore.
Yes. I like to believe I'm wiser now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Coach, you've been a coach for about 22, 23 years now. And when you think back to when you started versus where we are now, how has it changed? And what are some of the challenges that you are experiencing now that maybe you didn't have 22, 23 years ago?
Well, a lot has changed. Honestly, I think back probably in my first year, we were using technology products to cut up our game film, and game would be over at 11, and I would get home about 9 a.m. from, just turning around our game film. So now we have Huddle. We can watch everything, right here, right now on the internet. Mm-hmm. So things have changed in a positive way for us. And then obviously there are some things that are more challenging for us now. You look at the landscape of like college football and how that's changed with the transfer portal and, NIL. And there is inevitably going to be some trickle down. So we're
seeing that.
Yeah, we're absolutely seeing it. There are some states, now that have, NIL opportunities for high school kids. There are some states that have transfer, one-time transfer opportunities for transfer kids. These are all things that, have been proposed here in Texas as well. And so trying to navigate what that looks like here in the next few years for our kids is probably the most challenging thing,
Right.
because ultimately our goal is still to try to make sure that they
Hmm.
go through high school with the plan on moving on to the next stage. And if that does include some of these opportunities, that's great, but that's probably not going to be the opportunity for everybody. So still making sure that they're prepared to, move on to that next phase is.
And how do you get people to accept, because we are in a high stakes environment now, where so many young people and are looking at the next opportunity. How do you get people to accept that moving on to that next opportunity won't happen for everyone when so many people believe that it's what everyone should have an opportunity to do?
We don't necessarily approach the question that way.
Hmm.
We do tell our kids that if you want to go and play and move on at the next level, there is an opportunity for you.
Okay.
You have to decide what opportunity is,
What that looks like.
what that looks like,
Hmm.
what you are willing to do
Hmm.
to continue on. So we have kids playing, college football. We signed a couple of kids this year. One's going to go play in Lafayette in Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
Another's going to go to Texas Southern. We have a kid playing in Kansas right now. One playing in Minnesota right now. So as a Texas kid, you have to decide: am I willing to move to Wisconsin and have
Minnesota.
and have the wind blowing in your face on the 2 mile run? Is it important enough for me to
Right.
continue at the next level to go take that opportunity?
Hmm.
And so we don't necessarily discourage a kid or say you're not going to have it. We
Right.
just say your opportunity may look different
Right.
than someone else's.
No, that's a healthy way of framing it, because I don't want to give the impression that we're discouraging, but we have this belief structure now that everyone is going to be able to get to the place they want to get to.
Sure.
And we're not saying they can't.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to be willing to look at things holistically.
Sure.
What does that opportunity look like? And I
Yeah.
love your point. What are you willing to do to get there?
Yeah. We're completely honest, and we're going to let every kid know that the likelihood of you receiving, the NIL money, that's not everybody's going to have that opportunity.
Which there's so much of that now.
Sure. Absolutely.
How has that changed what you do?
Right now we haven't necessarily had to deal with the NIL situations quite yet. I think what's changed mostly is what we have to do in preparation. We're trying to learn a little bit more about how NIL looks, not at the college level now, but what it would look like if it were to come to the high school level, because it's not something we've ever dealt with before, and we're not very familiar with it. And even unfortunately, I talk to college recruiters come in, and they tell us all the time how quickly the rules are changing for them.
Very fluid environment.
Yeah. And so we're trying to all kind of learn on the fly. The difference is if you're a college guy, you're operating in a business. I'm operating to try to prepare kids for the next stage. So
That
my
is
stakes
a
are
very, what's the word I'm looking for here? That is a very astute point.
Yeah.
But it's also one that I think people need to recognize. That is a business for some, but what you're doing is completely different.
It's completely different. And so we're trying to make sure our kids make the right decisions for, the statement we always make is those things are not 4-year decisions. They're 40-year decisions. So we're trying to make sure you're setting yourself up for the next 40 and not just for the next 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. There's so much pressure being placed on high school athletics right now. How do you help your young athletes manage that?
I mean, we flat out say the goal in this is to have fun. We're still trying to remind them that this is supposed to be fun. This is an opportunity for you to be successful. Obviously, that's what we want, but it's also an opportunity for you to do something that not every kid in the school is going to do.
Very unique.
Very unique. It's an opportunity for you to do it with, people you've grown up with. These are the memories that you're going to keep on and hold on to for a really, really long time. So we do focus on the fun aspect because there's a lot of things that are happening now that could pull the fun out of it. And we try to remind them that it is supposed to be fun.
That reminds me of a sports documentary I watched about the 1983 NC State Wolfpack.
Okay.
Jim Valvano's team. They had the reunion all these years later, and you could still tell these guys were a team.
Yeah.
The bond, the fellowship, the fun that they still have together. I think that's what we want young people to take with them whenever their playing days are over.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can have, you know, the NIL deals and all that stuff. Like, that's all fine and good, and I'm not rooting against it. But you know, at the end of the day, that's not going to happen for everybody. So what does everybody else get out of it? And so we're trying to make sure that everybody gets the same out of it, which is a good experience and an opportunity to move forward.
Yeah, I loved organized sports. I played basketball and ran track, and I wasn't a speed person. I was a distance person. Yeah. Although sometimes I think my coach would punish me and make me run the 800.
That's a mid distance. You can do it.
No. The 800 was brutal. Yeah. It was. And then sometimes I ran the mile relay.
Yeah, mile relay.
Yeah, I had to run that 400.
Right. It's very necessary.
I won't be sharing my times, Coach, so you don't have to worry about that.
That's okay. We can get you out and let you show some of the kids how it's done.
Yeah, I'll show them how it's done, right, how not to do it. So, Coach Price, I want to thank you for being our guest today. Your commitment, focus, and leadership are to be admired. And you are truly one of the reasons why Leander ISD is such a great place for our students, their families, and the staff. Thank you for all you do to make a difference in the lives of our students. And in the words of our Chief Communications Officer, Christina Hardy, go 1 LISD.
Thank you guys for having me. Go 1 LISD.